Hello and welcome to the Streamline. My name is Chikotich Popola.
And I am Matinta Nanchengwa.
And we are back as usual with stories that made headlines this past week, starting of course with Glencore selling off 100% of their shares of Mopani copper mines.
And of course, Zambia will receive 8.7 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine next month.
And then we'll wrap up with the international story of how Joe Biden kicks in with US policy changes right after his inauguration. Catch us on the other side.
And jumping straight into it, Glencore has sold 100% of its shares to the Zambian government. That is 100% shares of Mopani mine. Now, in an interesting turn of events, this move was financed from Glencore's daughter company, a subsidiary called Carlissa. The Zambian government has borrowed $1.5 billion to finance their purchase of the 100% shares of Mopani mines. What do you think we are going to do about sustaining the mine now that it is in the hands of the Zambian government?
To be honest, I personally think we don't have the capacity to run the mines in the long term, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see on what our government has planned, whether they'll have to do staff changes, though personally I would advise that they stick to the current staff that's working at Mopani copper mines and not make that many changes. Because when you listen to their reasons for buying the mines, most of it is, to make sure they preserve people's jobs there. But what happens in the long run? Are we going to be able to run the mines? Because keep in mind, the mines were under maintenance in the first place, right? We had a cracked smelter and we had molten copper that was leaking from it. So all that has to be thought of, what's going to happen then to Mopani copper mines. I guess we just have to wait and see for now.
Now, in a surprising twist of events, this transaction means that even though the Zambian government owns 100% of the shares, while they are still in debt to Glencore, all the copper that they produce will have to be sold to Glencore until the debt is paid off. Currently, copper is trading at about $8,000 per ton, and there are projections that it might hit $10,000 per ton, but we are not sure. How is this going to actually profit the country in the long run?
In the long run, we honestly don't know. Because our payment agreement is we have to pay back in the space of 10 to 17 years from now. That's looking at the production capacity of the mines and also looking at the fluctuating rates of copper. Now, we know right now during the pandemic, copper seems to be doing okay, right? But whatever proceeds are coming out of the mines aren't exactly coming to us at a full scale. So what happens in the long run when copper prices start to go down and fluctuate? We know how the story runs. So honestly, I don't know what our government was thinking in doing this, but from my point of view, it was a very wrong move. But we'll wait and see.
So interestingly enough, while we are in debt, the benefit is that this debt will not be paid from our tax revenue. That means that this is a self-financing project. However, the big question remains, are we going to be selling fully processed copper or are we just selling copper ore? These are the things that we need to think about as we analyze this Glencore deal. And
also we have to look at how this could play out as a political move for the ruling party. No politicizing things, but it does appear that way. But what happens in the event that they do not win the elections this time around? We inherit debt, and that's something that no ruling party should ever leave for a country.
Yeah, very interesting developments, and we shall continue to watch them right here on the Streamline.
And we move on to our second story, which has to do with COVID-19. Now, Zambia has been given approximately 8.7 million doses of the vaccine, thanks to the African Union. But one has a lot of questions about the vaccine, though. We've already seen people talking on social media about how they will not receive the vaccine, how they will receive the vaccine, and they're so skeptical. And they've compared it to the malaria and the polio vaccines we've been getting in the previous days. But, Mutinta, I think you have more data on this than I do.
So let's talk about safety issues. A lot of people are asking about the safety of this vaccine and so on and so forth. I know there have been articles circulating that some people tested positive for HIV. I want to assure the public out there that you will not get AIDS from receiving this vaccine. Now, we have spoken about this before, but very briefly, I will dwell into how this vaccine actually works. This vaccine works by replicating the protein of the COVID-19 virus. And by doing that, it teaches your body how to combat it, and thus you will be able to develop an immune response from the vaccine. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, why should we get a vaccine from the West? Well, in a nutshell, every medicine that we get must be tested by the Zambia Bureau of Standards. There is no way the government can give you medicine that is not tested or approved.
So one has to question when we're going to get it and who's going to get it?
So we are likely to get it in the month of February, and the people that are going to get it first are the people who need it the most. That is the people who are at highest risk of the disease. That is the elderly, the people who are on the front line. And just for the show of political willpower, we'll probably see a few politicians. Hopefully we can see our president take some leadership and receive the vaccine live, the same way that Boris Johnson took it, for example. So these are the people that are likely to get it. I know we're looking at this in terms of population. We do have a population of about 18 million, but at the moment we need to remember that this is an emergency vaccine, and so the people that need it most are the people who will receive it first.
And I think it kind of matches how many cases we do have currently, right? So the vaccine can't be for everyone, especially people that don't have the virus, but it's for people that have the virus and can heal from it, right?
Well, actually, you need to get the vaccine before you get the virus so that you can be protected from it. And this is a misconception people have. A vaccine is not a cure. It is merely a protection mechanism. I'm sure we remember that we did have vaccines, for example, the SARS vaccine. We got the SARS vaccine even before we got SARS so that we could be protected against it. And now SARS is almost unheard of. This is a projection that we have for COVID-19. Now, a lot of people are thinking, when are we all going to get the vaccine? This is a projection for about 2 or 3 years so that we can achieve what is known as herd immunity. I'm sure you know that there are some people who are unable to get the vaccine due to allergic reactions and so on and so forth. So when we have herd immunity, which is having majority of the population vaccinated, that's when we can say that we are finally steps closer to being completely free of COVID-19.
Now, I'm aware that we have different types of vaccines currently. We have one from Oxford, we have the Moderna. Which vaccine do you think we're going to receive?
Okay, so the vaccines that we are going to receive from the African Union are the Johnson & Johnson one, which is a great vaccine because it doesn't need to be frozen and can be kept at refrigerator temperature. We also have the Pfizer vaccine, which is a little bit tricky as this one does require to be frozen. And we do have the AstraZeneca one, which is a UK and Swedish joint effort. These are the vaccines that we shall be receiving in February.
For Streamline, ladies and gentlemen, where we ask the questions you want to ask but can't get answers to. On to our next story. And news reaching our desks, the Ministry of Health has curtailed the statement made by the African Union in regards to how much of the dosage we're receiving of the COVID vaccine.
In a nutshell, the Ministry of Health is saying that they cannot approve a vaccine for use in Zambia until Cabinet has sat down and has looked at the safety issues and distribution and so on and so forth. So to explain this, the AU has said they have allocated us 8.7 million doses, but the Ministry of Health is saying that they shall pick which vaccine is best for us.
Alright, so regards to that, any information to do with when, who, or where will receive the vaccination has to come through the Ministry of Health, through the Ministry of Information. Otherwise, any statements aside from that particular ministry will be counted as unofficial.
And finally, in our international story, President Joe Biden has signed a flurry of executive orders that are now changing some policies that his predecessor had put in place right after inauguration. President Joe Biden has signed many agreements and has pushed back on certain policies, including immigration, climate change, stuff to do with student loans, and a whole range of things that have been changed. Chikochi, what are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, I am excited for the US because Biden has kicked in with so much energy and has made so many policy changes, some of which affect the policy changes that Mr. Trump made. But I guess it's a good thing because now he's focused so much on coronavirus, of course, and he's changing immigration policies, and also he's changing the climate policies that Trump had left behind. Trump left the Paris Climate Accords, and Biden, in front of reporters, signed back into the accords, and that was quite the plus on the US side.
Okay, we do have a lot of things happening in the US, and to see Joe Biden putting in a lot of political willpower, especially on these very contentious issues such as climate change, immigration, and so on, is very encouraging. I think the American people right now are watching still with very bated breath because anything can change at any moment. However, there is a sentiment of hope as people watch Joe Biden go about his business. Mind you, all of this happened right after the inauguration. Biden does not waste any time.
Clearly doesn't. And I must say, I am so happy the inauguration went on without that many issues because we saw so many troops lined up just in case of, some problems. We saw Mr. Trump leaving the White House rather late, walking through the red carpet. The man is dramatic. He does know how to make an exit.
Let's just say Trump wanted things his way, but your way does not always prevail.
Thank you for joining us on the Streamline this week. That's all we had for you, but a recap of the stories that made headlines.
First of all, Glencore has sold 100% of its shares to the Zambian government in a very interesting deal.
The AU has awarded Zambia approximately 8.7 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, though we must add that our Ministry of Health has indicated that not until they go to Cabinet and submit which vaccine is best suited for our people will they issue any statement over that matter.
And of course, Joe Biden has signed a lot of policies, mostly going back on what his predecessor had already put in place.
Well, that's it on the Streamline for this week. Make sure to join us next week. And don't forget to leave a comment, like our page. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube,
Twitter, and Instagram.
Thank you for joining us. And remember to always stay safe, sanitize, and most importantly, mask up.